All right, we're here to talk about the Hays Code again and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and a few other topics and a few other movies. The Hays Code, it's very important we go over this and over this so we all understand the concept of what is happening with the Hays Code. The Hays Code developed in the 30s to regulate movies, we might say to censor movies, but it was a voluntary program. There were not laws passed about this. The Hays Code was developed by the movie industry to regulate the movies because many people felt the movies were getting too sexual in the 20s. So the Hays Code developed in the 30s, basically a censorship board. Movies had to be submitted to the Hays censorship board before they would be approved for release. So what did the Hays Code talk about? The Hays Code talked about you cannot show nudity, suggestive dancing, my favorite, lustful kissing. No lustful kissing. Nothing that shows a mocking of religion or depicts drug use. Think about that when we discuss Man with the Golden Arm in just a minute. Interracial relationships, interracial marriages called miscegenation. Miscegenation, the mixing of races. So interracial relationships, and this was a concern for the I Love Lucy show. Lucy and Desi Arnaz, a Cuban. The showing of revenge plots, that's an interesting one. No showing of revenge plots. Revenge wasn't allowed, I guess. And last but not least, no showing of criminal methods that depict the crime so well that it could be imitated in real life. So the Hays Code. And so as we went through the 30s, 40s, and 50s, especially the 40s, the Hays Code was really in effect. The 50s, things started breaking down. In the 40s, we had a movie called The Outlaws, which was a Howard Hughes movie. Howard Hughes, the great billionaire who built the Spruce Goose, largest airplane ever built, was very involved in movies, and Jane Russell was one of his favorite actresses. Jane Russell, who spent some time living in Arizona, up in Sedona, I believe. Jane Russell. Jane Russell was featured in the movie The Outlaws. Jane Russell, a very curvaceous woman for the time, very tall, very well built, and she showed a lot of cleavage in this movie. But even more importantly, Jane Russell, there was a very, very provocative movie poster. Please go on to Google and Google The Outlaws, Jane Russell, and find the movie poster in Google Images. Very, very famous movie poster, and she's in a very provocative pose, and again showing a lot of cleavage. And there was lots of problem with this movie poster. The Hays Code would not recognize this movie, and Howard Hughes fought them for a number of years before finally it was released with the Hays Code permission. Then as we move into the 50s, Man with the Golden Arm, a very important movie. Man with the Golden Arm that we talked about 2 weeks ago with Frank Sinatra. Again, about drug use, about heroin use. The star of the show, Frank Sinatra, is a heroin addict in the movie. The Hays Code would not approve this movie, and the studio went ahead and released it anyway, and they got away with it only because Sinatra was such a big star in his own right at the time that they could do that. One of the very few movies to be released in the 50s without the Hays Code approval, and still actually made some money. And I also believe Sinatra was nominated for an Oscar. So now we're in the 50s. Another movie, The Moon is Blue, Otto Preminger. The Moon is Blue. The movie got into trouble because they used the word virgin. The word virgin was not allowed to be used in movies. We'll talk about words again in a minute in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. 1959, Some Like It Hot, the Marilyn Monroe movie, possibly her most famous movie. Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon are transvestites, dress up like women so they can perform in the all-female band with Marilyn Monroe. And this movie was really pushing at the boundaries of the Hays Code. And so we have The Moon is Blue and Some Like It Hot in the 50s, also Man with the Golden Arm. But then we get to the 60s and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, 1966 movie starring the great couple, married couple, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, two of the biggest stars of their day. Elizabeth Burton had to gain 30 pounds and really tried to play down her beauty to play this part, because the movie studio thought she was too beautiful and too much of a glamorous movie star, so she gained a lot of weight and put on a different look to show them that she could play this part, and what a great part she does do. The movie was based on a 1962 play by Edward Albee, and the script for the movie was taken almost word for word from the play. It was the idea of the director of the movie, Mike Nichols, to use this format, to just take the play and use the wording almost directly. But in the play there was some profanity. It might seem very tame today. The use of the word goddamn, the use of the word son of a bitch numerous times, the use of the word hump the hostess, and also the use of the expression screw you. Now, all of these terms caused quite a ruckus with the Hays Code when the studio and Mike Nichols were trying to get the movie passed. And eventually the movie was released with the expression screw you removed from it. And I believe that expression was used by Elizabeth Taylor. I'm not 100% sure, but it's been speculated that part of the reason that they did not approve of screw you is because a woman was saying it, not a man. But that is speculation. If anybody can find out who actually said the line screw you in the original play, let me know. That can be your extra credit. So Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf finally did get passed, even with the goddams, SOBs, and hump the hostess, and also with this very sexual tensions, lots of sex stuff going on in the movie. No overt showing of sex, but sexual tensions and sexual situations. But what a great movie, what a great performance by Elizabeth Taylor. So be sure you read all of the information on that in the folder, and also watch approximately 30 to 40 minutes of the movie. Then hopefully you'll go out and rent it so you can watch it in its entirety. So Virginia Woolf really pushing at the boundaries of the Hays Code, and the movie people, the people who are running the Hays Code and running the Motion Picture Academy, are starting to realize through the late 50s and early 60s that the Hays Code is just not working, and a new system needs to be put in its place. And this had been being talked about since 1962. And of course, finally, that does come to play when the movie industry puts in the new rating system in '68, the GPM, I can never remember that, GPMX system, General, Parental, Mature, and X-rated. That's changed a little bit since then. Now we have R instead of M. Now we have PG-13. NC-17 has replaced X. So this was coming about at the time the movie industry was thinking about this replacement, but Virginia Woolf, with these words, and especially the word screw, really pushed the boundaries so far that made the movie industry realize they needed a new system. This Hays Code was not working anymore. Another movie I want you to think about is a very famous cult movie called Blow Up. It's an English movie, and it's important because it shows the British invasion band, the Yardbirds, performing in a warehouse, and Jeff Beck, the guitarist in the Yardbirds, and the video also shows Jimmy Page, two of the guitarists in the Yardbirds, Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page. Jeff Beck destroys his guitar in the video, and I'll try and include a clip of that in the folder. It's not there yet, but hopefully by the time you watch this it will be there. So the Yardbirds performing in the movie Blow Up about the same time as Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. The Blow Up was one of the first movies to be shown widely in the United States that actually showed nudity. So again, a very important movie, Blow Up. And again, I'll be looking for the video of the Yardbirds performing in that actual movie with Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page. Eric Clapton was also in the Yardbirds before this time, so all three great guitarists had spent time in the Yardbirds. So, all that information, these movies, go out and rent some of these if you want. The Outlaws, Howard Hughes and Jane Russell. The Moon is Blue, Otto Preminger. The Man with the Golden Arm, you've seen that 2 weeks ago. Some Like It Hot, the Marilyn Monroe movie. And of course, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, that you'll watch right here, and the English cult movie Blow Up. Blow Up. And another movie to mention, so 1966, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. By 1969, the new system of rating is in effect. And then we have 1969, very famously, Midnight Cowboy. Midnight Cowboy we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks. X-rated, the only Oscar-winning X-rated movie ever. So we've gone to this from 66. From 66. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? There she is, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. From 1966, what you might think of as a fairly tame movie. 1969, X-rated. So see how fast things move in our slippery slope concept. So a few more things I'd like to talk about here. Mike Nichols, the director of this movie, this was one of his very first movies, And Mike Nichols went on to have a huge career as a movie director, went on to direct or produce The Birdcage, Biloxi Blues, The Graduate, Postcards from the Edge, Catch-22, a great cult 60s, 70s movie. The concept of Catch-22, a very interesting concept. And also the movie Silkwood, so Mike Nichols. So there you have it, the Hays Code, lasting through the 30s, 40s, and 50s, but really breaking down in the 50s with movies such as Man with the Golden Arm and even Blackboard Jungle, and moving into the 60s and really falling apart and not serving its purpose any longer with such movies as Blow Up and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Mike Nichols, the director. So be sure you check out some of these movies, and again, I will try and include the Yardbirds video from the movie Blow Up, showing Jeff Beck destroying his guitar and a very young Jimmy Page. Be looking for that. That's all.